Once again, I'm very sorry to bring you this matchup, but hey, Prepaid Kate and Glacier RP are the two most reliable decks in this game right now by quite a long shot. So what you can do about it? So, both our decks are slight variations on the norm. He's running Proco Prepaid, which means that he actually has a lousy early. Yes, he has a lousy early game. You can see that his deck is much slower at the start, but it builds up into an economic engine that can easily compete against RP late game. So that is very scary. For my side, I'm going with Mutate to counter Parasite. We'll see how effective that is this game. Yes, I started Agenda Flooded and that was my mulligan hand. So thankfully Jackson appeared early on so I could dump all my agendas on turn 2. Thereafter I found 2 Celeb Gifts, which means that my economy is more or less set for the early to mid game. Until I begin starting to score an agenda. This is why I put Tsurugi on my HQ on turn 1 because I needed a hard end run on my first turn. Now that I have no more agendas left in hand, that Tsurugi will not be res for a long time. I do not want it to be Parasite bait. I'd rather have Parasite be attracted to my pups, which are much more expendable. So this is why I'm going to toss both pups on R&D. They are taxing if he chooses not to destroy them, and if he does Parasite them, that's less Parasites that he can use on my Tsurugis, which is a win for me. So now I'm pretty rich, 20 credits, but RP is incredibly money hungry, especially this version. I've watched the SteamHack Invitational games. The winner, Ahmed, was running 2 toll booths, and 2 toll booths is incredibly effective because it is one of the few eyes that can actually tax Kate. Prepaid Kate doesn't run FEM, which means that toll booths will be super effective. 5 credits adds up to a lot, so I definitely want a toll booth on R&D sooner or later. Not now though, because R&D is pretty secure with double pup. Once he begins eroding my pups away, I'll consider placing the toll booth there. For now though, Oh yes, and the other big benefit of toll booth that you cannot ignore is that as the outermost piece of ice on HQ or R&D, it means that they cannot run there to deactivate RP's ability because that will sap 3 credits from them, which is certainly not desirable. Now at this point, he Dirty Laundry is my hand, so I do rest the Tsurugi because, he has no more clicks left, and I want to force him to get a Mimic or a Deus Ex out. That's one less tutor he has for his Parasite that will eventually go on the Tsurugi. Yep. So that's my rationale for resing it. Even though my hand is more or less quite secure, there's only a future perfect. And here he allows me to fire the Tsurugi. So obviously I end the run to deny him 5 credits from Dirty Laundry. He has 7 cards in hand thanks to overdrawing with Astrolabe and Proco. So dealing 3 net damage is quite a silly idea. So yeah, I do give up my Tsurugi, exposing it to Parasite, but the good news is I do deny him his Dirty Laundry. It is very hard to tax Prepaid Kate's recursion. There's so much recursion in there, so it's pretty hard. With RP, I think it's better to tax them in terms of credits, and being able to deny a Dirty Laundry was probably a right call there. So now in the meantime, I continue drawing out with Jackson, trying to find a Caprice so that I can start scoring Nises. I don't find it, but I do find an Ash, and at this point I decide to place a toll booth on the Jackson. This will become my scoring server. Now there's a reason why I placed it on the Jackson, because I know that I'm going to sack the Jackson sooner or later. And once I sack it, the server will be empty for me to score. I do not want to create a new remote to trigger Astrolabe, because that's the last thing you want to do against Prepaid Kate, to give more cards to make him play faster. Now here I res the double pup, and he resists the temptation to pull out the Parasite. He wants to get through the server with money to spare, in case he meets a nasty piece of ice, or in this case, clearly to steal the NAPD. That was a very wise choice by him. If I were in his shoes, I would have tilted the Parasite on the first pup and then jack out. He did not give in to that temptation, and that definitely paid off. And for him, the setback of going down to 0 credits after stealing the NAPD was not a liability for him, because Proco allows him to recover very quickly, and I did not have Caprice or Nisei Mark II in my hand at that time anyway. So I couldn't take advantage of this scoring window. He has only 1 credit in his pool, mind you, but I can't take advantage of this scoring window because I didn't draw a Nisei. If I had a Nisei here, even then, scoring would be questionable. I'm pretty sure he has a Stim Hack in hand. Stim Hack will get him through Toll Booth. So yeah, that's a huge problem. Yeah, that was the one chance I had at stealing the game. But not having enough resources to score a Nisei Mark II during this turn was a huge opportunity I'm giving up. The game's only going to get harder and harder from now on as he continues Procoing his way to victory. If you've read the Steam Hack article on runner economy, Proco with prepaid economy is so good. I can't expect to raise him, and the Ash in my Jackson remote is probably not going to be of much use because he's going to get credit so quickly. So here I create a mental health clinic. He doesn't seem to be interested in contesting my remotes at all, so I'm just going to do this. Yeah. So now he attempts to contest my remote. First, he runs through archives, so I reshuffle 3 cards back in. Minor mistake there. I should have reshuffled the celebrity gift in instead of the pub. That was my intention. I misclicked. Then he spends a click running to check, making sure that that's not a Chronos project, which is a pretty smart thing to do as Kate. You have to be paranoid about Chronos project nowadays. And lastly, installs a clone chip. Passing the turn over to me, I find a Barco and an Eli. I have a Sundew in hand, but I do not want to install it in the remote, the scoring remote, because I want to score agendas once I draw into them. I haven't actually been drawing to agendas after the initial flood, which is both a good and a bad thing, because this is the prime time to score agendas when he's on so few credits. So here I installed what I believe is a Barco on the remote. This is to tax his Cerberus. It won't tax much, admittedly, but well, it's something, I guess. The toll booth will be the main taxation on that remote. Excalibur would have been perfect on the remote, but I haven't found Excalibur yet. In the meantime, he does continue procoing his way up and up. And now he goes for archives with a dirty laundry run. That's for money, and now he's back up into a healthy credit level, so now it's very hard for me to score. I draw into a Chronos project and I immediately attempt to score it. I'm trying to pass this off as an Ash or a Caprice Nisei. Hopefully this will lure him into running that. That will allow him into thinking that is not worth running. If I can get away with this Chronos project, I'll be in fantastic shape because I'll have denied his Parasite. That would be a huge, huge deal. Yeah, in the meantime, I will also try to distract him by now playing my Sundew and protecting it with an Enigma. Again, this is specifically against Prepaid Kate to tax Cyber Cypher by forcing him to use a Cyber Cypher on the Sundew remote. So here he plays Lucky Find, he runs R&D. Here I need to think for a while to decide whether I should res the Toll Booth. Yeah. Because if I do res the Toll Booth here, it will be very hard to defend him in my scoring remote. So I do res the Toll Booth to force him to pay the credits. 3 credits to get past the Toll Booth. He does go through and continue on with the pub and destroys the pub with the Parasite from a clone chip. So yeah, he has all his recursion out. That's very good for him because he's able to destroy lots and lots of my ice, which is very, very bad for RP. And yes, he does run the remote, and at this point I knew that once he runs the remote, I can't do anything about this. I wish I had a Caprice instead of an Ash in that remote. This is a mental note for myself. Ash is not that useful. Oh man. An ELP would have been better. In this scenario, he wouldn't have been able to contest my remote. I don't know. Ash is useful in a limited number of scenarios, and is pretty good if the runner is playing aggressively, but not trying to trash your assets, so they'll... Yeah. Or I don't know. In this case, Ash wasn't able to protect my remote, and it got destroyed along with the Cronus project that I really badly needed to score. So well, solace right now is that I have a new Sundew. I can install it in my remote for double Sundew. So this should really snowball my credits out of control, unless he decides to challenge my credits, which he doesn't seem too interested in. He already gave me lots of turns of mental health and pet campaigns. Oh man, if that Ash was a Caprice, I would be in such a good position now. Well, I have no agendas in hand, so I'm fine with picking up a Nisei Mark II on the way. The DBS has been very helpful in filtering out my deck, but even with it out, I still haven't found my Caprice Nisei. And the bad news is I decided to manually draw, and that draws me into the second copy of Nisei Mark II. So now, this is very dangerous. A legwork can easily end my game. He has 3 points thanks to the Kronos project. So what I really need to do right now is to quickly start scoring. Hence, in turns, the Ash onto the remote. As I was saying, Ash is not very good in this scenario, but it'll have to make do. And with double Sundew, I should be able to get enough of a credit lead to leverage on Ash. So this is a long-term planning thing, because I cannot interns the Ash and try to score the Nisei in the same turn. Hence, I needed to interns this turn in case I feel like scoring the Nisei next turn. At this point, I'm just really looking for my Caprice Nisei right now. That is the only thing that I'm missing right now. And it's a very vital part of trying to score an agenda. I am very reliant on Caprice Nisei. Especially with the runner so rich. He's able to easily keep up against me in terms of credits. So there's no way I can safely score a Nisei in this scenario. Alright, I find my third copy of Sundew, so I'm going to keep it. Tsurugi is pretty useless because my Kronos project failed, so he's going to have lots of parasites, rendering my Tsurugis useless. So, the Sundew will be to replace the old Sundew once I decide to trash the old Sundew in the scoring remote to start scoring my Nisei. And I also install another barrier on the remote so that I will be able to tax Cerberus for 2 tokens instead of 1 for every remote run. That might come in handy later. Alright, prepaid voice pad goes down along with SMC. Fair enough. Now here, I bring out a pup instead of the mental health clinic, because at this point, mental health clinic, I don't need that many more credits, and I don't want to fuel his astrolabe drawing. So the pup will be quite important later on. I plan to shove it on archive so that he doesn't get free dirty laundry runs. I think for a very long and hard time on this, it's very easy for him to challenge my Nisei if I do toss it in that remote. But I decide to go for it anyway. I have to. It's now or never. I'm not drawing my Caprice Nisei, so this is something I had to do. He plays a Lucky Find, so he might not be running my remote after all. He's not. He decides to Levi. So that's huge. He gave me the window to score a Nisei Mark II. I wasn't really observing his deck size, but I should have paid more attention to that. Maybe then I would have figured out that he was playing Levi this turn, and it would have been easier to make this decision to score Nisei. But in any case, it doesn't matter. The Nisei is scored. I'm now in a much better spot. So here, he decides to go for the indexing on my R&D, and of course, I let him through. Now, I can use a Nisei Mark II token on this, and I really should. This was a big mistake. Using the Nisei Mark II token here means that he cannot trash my Caprice Niseis. By not using the Nisei token here, I'm effectively allowing him to to rearrange my deck, which means he will deny me my Caprice Niseis. That is bad. And he goes on with a Maker's Eye run. Now, I really should be stopping this, but I figure that there aren't too many agendas in my deck. Given that I've buried some of them with Daily Business Show already. And think about this. All of my agendas left in my deck are hard to steal except for a single copy of Nisei Mark II. So I allow him to just access 3 cards. The worst that could happen is that he steals a Mark II and some other agenda. If he finds a Mark II and an NAPD, that's game. That would be very unfortunate. Would that happen? There's actually a good chance. I haven't really been paying attention to how many agendas I buried with Daily Business Show, but it turns out that I didn't actually bury all that many. I haven't actually been seeing agendas, remember that? Sure, I buried an NAPD here and there, but I actually haven't buried any future perfects yet. So that was a lapse in judgment, and it turns out that the top 3 cards were Future Perfect, Nisei Mark II, Future Perfect. So Mark II gets stolen, and I play 2 side games, losing one of them, which loses me the game, because he's now on 8 agenda points. Oh dear. Well, yes, that was a very, very bad judgment. I really didn't want to use the Nisei token because I really wanted to keep it to force him to run my remote multiple times. That was the only way I was going to score agendas out, because I figured that I was never going to see my Caprice Niseis. To be fair, I got really, really unlucky. I dug R&D so hard with DBS, but never found the Caprice Niseis that I needed to get my game going. Still, I should have realized that if he got the Maker's Eye off, even if he didn't win at that point, he would have trashed every single Caprice Nisei in my deck. And that would have been an atrocious ending. Either way, I wouldn't have been able to score easily from my remote. So, yeah, that was a very bad judgment call. I should have stopped either the indexing or the Maker's Eye. Probably the indexing, because having just freshly divide, the chances of him having both indexing and an R&D digging card in his hand were very low. Should have realized that. If I learn one thing from this game, is that R&D is a very vital server to protect against prepaid K, because that's where they're going to find most of their agendas from. It's just not viable for them to play side games on remotes, and with DBS out, there's going to be nothing in HQ. So I should have placed more emphasis on R&D. A single lone toll move just ain't gonna cut it. Well, that's all. Thanks for watching and happy night running. See you around.